All right, we should be live now, should be recording. So this is the first episode of McKade's ArKade. It's a podcast I'm trying to do, just have some conversation discussions with other individuals and just talk to them about things that's going on in the world or maybe what they're up to. They may be content creators or maybe they might be a doctor, who knows. So today on the first episode, I'm joined by Mr. DJ Smyles.
What's up, everybody?
So for the audience and stuff out there, could you go ahead and tell them a little about yourself, what you're into? Do you do content creation or anything, or just what's going on with you, your interests, hobbies, all that?
Yeah, at first, I want to say thank you for having me on your podcast today. I greatly appreciate it.
I'm grateful that
I've
you did
yeah,
it.
um, I've been a DJ for the past 20 years. I've been able to work in bars in the realm of karaoke and just live music. I've worked in clubs. I've done event DJing. I've had the opportunity to travel across the U.S. in doing so. Um,
It's pretty neat.
yeah, it's been pretty fulfilling. I've done charity events and stuff like that. It hasn't actually. I kind of got my start in raves. Some were renegades. I've had other ones that were sanctioned, what have you. Um, but
So
yeah, that's
when
kind of
you
where I
first
started.
started, when you first got
Yeah.
into it, and you first started doing it, it was because you were doing raves.
Yeah, so the way I originally got into DJing was a buddy's older brother. He was kind of my mentor, and he really introduced me to like the art of turntablism. Admittedly, let's
Hmm.
see, the first time I ever put a needle to a vinyl, I was probably about five, and it was my parents' record player. The Michael Jackson Thriller album
Nice.
was the first vinyl I ever put a needle to, and I tried to scratch it. This is back in like the 80s. Yeah, I'm a little up there in age, but yeah, this is back in the 80s, and I tried to scratch it, and my mom stopped me real quick and informed me that DJs have special needles that they use. So back in the days of music
Oh, I didn't
videos
know
and
that.
yeah, there's a lot we could I'll definitely share more with that as we progress.
Right.
If you guys care to hear about it. Um, but yeah, so the backstory, my mom stopped me, and she told me my dad would be super upset if I messed up his Michael Jackson record.
Yeah.
um but that was probably what started my curiosity and fascination with DJing. And then it just kind of grew as I got older. I didn't touch another vinyl for many years. Didn't touch another turntable other than simply play stuff. And then it was the early 2000s is when I kind of got my opportunity to get hands-on turntables and start, articulating mixer levers and knobs and what have you. And I still perform in that method today. I don't use controllers. I use time-coded vinyls, with a mixer. So still kind of the old school. Reason being, is if a laptop ever fails or anything, I can
You would
still,
still be able to perform or
exactly. I can bust
gotcha.
out my vinyls and go ahead and continue performing. With nowadays, you can also, and I've done this a number of times, on one of the mixer channels, have an auxiliary cable and plug it to the headphone jack of your phone or something. Because laptops are there doesn't mean that you don't have other audio input sources. Um,
That's pretty neat.
yeah, so yeah, DJing is definitely one of those versatile arenas that you kind of have to stay on your toes. You definitely have to have a love of music, and you definitely want to be more of an extroverted individual because you definitely feed off the energy of the people in your
Of like the
environment.
audience, the crowd or whatever.
Exactly, exactly.
Gotcha.
It's definitely a give and take. It's a harmonious balance, kind of a yin and yang, so to say.
Hmm.
But going back to the story at hand, yeah. So my buddy's older brother started teaching me with house music and techno, and I absolutely loved it. And it wasn't until years later on that I had the opportunity to buy his old equipment. And kind of start doing my own thing, start practicing the craft, and like really pursuing it. Um, and yeah, I kind of took off from there. I got various opportunities uh, from that. Yeah, performing at raves or having like little side bits or being able to step in as a guest on someone's set. And then as for like officially being paid to DJ, yeah, it started out as karaoke bars. I got linked up with this group. It was by Request Entertainment. This nice couple, they had kind of contracts with some of the local bars, and they were doing karaoke, and it definitely the it wasn't what I was used to as
Hmm.
far as practicing the skill of DJing. It was kind of more playlist and a lot of emceeing. But that's also important if you're going to be doing events. So it still kind of worked me into the arena. It got me experience, becoming more and more familiar with music. Music has always been a big part of my life, and I've listened to a wide span of everything dang near. Very eclectic. Um,
It's pretty
but
awesome though.
it was definitely playlisting. Um, and some would argue it's not DJing by any means,
Hmm.
but that's kind of like the purist mindset, which to some degree, yeah, I would agree, but it's still very useful skills were acquired during that time. And then I got gigs playing at local bars, um, actually mixing music, and then I got to perform in one of our larger cities around here in the metropolitan area. So I'm a Bay Area native. So
And
yeah, out in San
you're from
Francisco.
California, or you living, or you just live there?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
born and raised out here in Cali. And I've lived here off and on for most of my life.
Hmm.
I've had my travels and lived in various places, but yeah, most of my life has definitely been out here in Cali.
So
Um,
what really made you decide to like this is the path you want to take, like career wise and everything else, like for DJing?
um, it was
Was
it
it
was kind of
just
a
your love
dream.
for music, or how did it start?
Yeah, so I think anyone who decides that they want to pursue anything in life, it has to start with a passion to some degree, right?
Right.
And I've always known I've been very passionate about music. I love what it does to you as a human being. I love how it affects your mindset. It
Hmm.
speaks to the soul. And people from different cultures, walks of life, ages, generations can bond over music.
That's
And
true.
so
That's why
that's
they refer to music as like the universal language,
right, right, truly, truly.
because every
Um,
culture, everyone enjoys, you know, some form of music for most part. I
exactly.
mean.
Exactly. So that's kind of how it started. And I had that dream when I was younger that, I wanted to be one of the greats, want to be one of the big DJs. So, like Tiesto, Van Buren, Dead Mouse, but had the realization as I got older that pretty much 99% of those top DJs, they are producers themselves.
Hmm.
If you look at, any of those arenas, they're playing their own music. So as I started to get into things more seriously, many years ago, I didn't have the skills, the knowledge, or the money and the equipment to be able to start producing. I really had, and no music theory knowledge by any means. And so I stuck to kind of performing. I was talked into kind of following the more corporate way of life. And so that fell by the wayside for a long time. And then I kind of maintained being like a hobbyist DJ. Eventually, I started my own entertainment business and came back to DJing. And then, unfortunately, in 2018, I had a life-changing event happen where I had to have a spinal fusion. And being able to carry gear or do the job that I was originally doing, couldn't do that anymore. I kind of had to learn how to walk and be a human being again and be
That's
healthy.
rough.
Yeah, and so that led right into COVID. And then during COVID, I made the decision, I had to change my way of life, and I had to remember who I was, what I was about, what were my passions, my hobbies, and music has always been there by my side. And that is when I made not hard decision, but like I
Hmm.
took a hard stance, like I want to produce.
Right.
And so from then is when I really started studying music production, music theory, really getting into the thick of things. And with that came the idea of, sorry, my computer decided
No, you're
to
good.
go on standby. Um, but with that came the decision as well to kind of get away a little bit from live performance and start producing for sync licensing.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
and for those that don't know, sync licensing is making music with the purpose of uh, selling it to or leasing it to essentially, um, companies for movies, television, video games, you got commercials, what have you. They all have to get their music from somewhere, and with that, you can get royalties from it. So it's
Right.
kind of a if you can get into the realm and make a good living off of it, it's long term, if not lifelong money. Um,
Because of
and
royalties and everything, right?
Exactly, exactly. So,
Yeah.
your first year you may not see much, but as people continue to play songs and what have you, your royalty checks will be larger, following years. And if you have more songs to get picked up and you're getting royalties on those as well, it compounds on top of compounds. And so that was a time where I also decided that I need to start learning a lot. Uh,
So
so
with with
Good.
with that process of you thinking that, um, so what route did you take to start doing that?
So I bought my first DAW, my digital audio workstation,
Okay.
which was FL Studio, and just like any trade craft, you need to become familiar with your tools. So I started poking around and really studying FL Studio. I started really analyzing the music I was
FL
listening to.
Studio is for those who don't know, that's Fruit Loops, right?
Yes, it is Fruity Loops.
Or
Yeah.
Fruity Loops, sorry, yeah.
Um, Yeah, I many years ago I had friends who were making music for the hip hop scene out here in the Bay Area. And I
Mm-hmm.
think my first experience was probably like FL14. But when I got involved, it was FL20. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was FL20, and then they had various renditions, and then 21 just recently hit the update. What was it, like a year ago, something like that. Um, and so, yeah, but I had a very light experience, pretty much just like an acquaintanceship with Fruity Loops back in the day. And so that's also what
That's
kind of
that's the
had me
program you
lean
ended
more.
up learning, try to learn better and get more acquainted with to
Exactly,
be able to,
exactly.
yeah, to progress
Yeah,
with
there was already a bit of a of familiarity, if
familiarity.
only by
Yeah.
name. Yeah. Um, so
When
anyway,
I
it
was
became
when I was
go ahead.
younger, sorry, when I was younger, I used to do music production and stuff, but
Mhm.
it was more of me taking loops and everything else, and there was a lot of different programs I was using. I couldn't really get into Fruity Loops, but there was like Hip Hop EJ, Sony Acid Pro, and I mean we're talking like 20 years ago or something like that. Gosh, I'm old. Because I was in my early 20s. Um, I can't remember. There was another one I used to use too, but anyway, I could never really get into Fruity Loops or whatever. But I do know like where I've seen and heard that it's like one of the top programs to be able to learn or get into.
The big three that people are probably most commonly familiar with are probably Ableton, Pro Tools, and Fruity Loops.
Okay.
Fruity Loops for a long time wasn't really known as being a front runner.
Hmm.
There was, I believe it was somewhere around 2010 or just before, when we kind of went through like the pop loudness wars. FL was for a period in production professionals, they were strictly using it for like 808s or for kicks and stuff because for some reason when you would hit the limiter with uh with those bass lines, you would get a certain distortion and it would maintain a certain amount of loudness that you really couldn't get with and it still retained a certain amount of clarity that you couldn't get with the other programs. And
So
so that in
so
a
on
weird
that.
sort of way set
Oh,
itself out.
okay. So on that, real quick. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
If so, if somebody were to decide to go down this path or is interested in trying to learn more stuff, the program you would highly recommend would be Fruity Loops.
Uh it depends on what you're trying to do. I've
Okay.
managed to use FL uh, for what I need. I'm also evolving in my production journey. There are other programs that I will have to learn, which are kind of industry standard. Pro Tools is still, really high up there. I'm more in the range of producing or composing now.
Hmm.
I mean, they are used, quite interchangeably in
What
certain arenas. Go
Gotcha.
ahead.
What other programs are them top ones you're referring to for people out there maybe want, like I said, that wants to go down this path?
So Ableton is very much used for like uh, scoring,
Mm,
scoring and soundtracking for movies. If you're going to go into that realm, Pro Tools is commonly used. Pro Tools is also very much used for the hip hop arena, but a lot of producers as well who are, use like tags like beat makers, they still use FL. It's extremely viable still, and there's so many high quality VSTs you can get. For those that don't know, VSTs are a prime example would be Spitfire strings. That's what I use for some of my compositions, and they literally record symphonies or certain aspects of a symphony. So, like the violins, they'll have them record different articulations of notes, and they have files upon files of these notes, and then you can go ahead and arrange them as need be. I mean, you can use MIDI keyboards or what have you. You can still articulate them yourself with a mod wheel or something like that too with your MIDI keyboard. But you can get realistic instrumentation still with FL. It's yeah, nothing is as I don't want to say low quality because that kind of seems derogatory. But we've come a long way from what FL used to be. It's definitely being considered as a higher end DAW now, and you can get actually
gotcha.
rather inexpensively, even if you don't have the money to do so. There are other programs out there for recording. You can always use Audacity. It's absolutely free. Reaper is $60 eventually. I think you get a 60 or 90-day evaluation period. Um, it's and then it just simply asks you, do you want to donate the $60? And you can keep using it. I'm not going to encourage people to do so, but that's what it asks you to do. But to access it, it's entirely free. And then a Reaper also has an amazing VST suite as well for it. Everything from EQs, sounds, different styles of keyboards, instrumentation, effects. And
That's pretty
these
cool.
are all free suites. So if you're serious and you just don't have the money, I would suggest Reaper. It will take a lot to try to learn. Once again, you need to learn your tools of any trade craft. It will take you a while to really learn the true ins and outs of Reaper, and it is a little more technical as well. You do have to kind of read into your decibel levels or the metrics, I'll say, of your articulations in a lot of your VSTs. But it will honestly be worthwhile, and that will give you lifelong tools as well and experience to continue on your production journey.
If someone was trying to get into this, how what would you recommend the path for them to just get their footing in there and start doing it?
Uh, exactly that. Start
Just
doing it.
start.
You can't start a
Was
journey
it
without
called
taking that
Reaver?
first step.
Reaver is the one you was
Uh,
talking about, or
Reaper,
oh, Reaper,
Reaper.
Reaper.
Yeah,
Sorry.
like the Grim Reaper.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, download, if you at least have a computer that can run it,
And they don't need
download
no
the
extra
software.
equipment or anything. Or what
Uh,
would you recommend? Just if they were if or intro equipment into it or anything like that that you
Intro
might
equipment,
recommend or
I would
entryway. You know.
I don't want to just go ahead and throw out exact equipment because doing the research into decibel levels and what headphones, what their levels are, what their drivers are, is also a part of the process.
Okay.
And it's highly useful information, and it's something that I had to learn. I don't mean to make this hard, and I'm not trying to gatekeep by any means, but it's been extremely valuable to me. Um, and I highly encourage anybody who's serious about it to go ahead and do the research as well. But I will give you that starting point of Audio Technica is a great place to start for microphones, for dynamic or condenser mics, for headphones. I decided to go Bear Dynamics. They're a really trusted name. I have Audio Technicas for
Mm-hmm.
I used the closebacks initially for when I started, but I also use them with my turntables when I'm doing events. And then I upgraded to Bear Dynamics, and then I have upgraded again to the VSX headphones by Steven Slate. And there's a particular reason for the Steven Slate, which we could probably get into later, if we get into like more of the ins and outs of mixing and mastering, because there's a bit of software that kind of helps out with that aspect.
Yeah, we get into
But
that in a minute too.
yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, those are definitely good places to start, kind of see what each has to offer, compare numbers. You might need to take a step back and find out what each of those numbers means first, like what it truly means. And so that way you have a greater understanding of what you're looking at and what you're truly comparing. Um, yeah, but that's
Would you recommend, or maybe there's, just off the top of your head, is it a certain content creator or anything like that that you could recommend, like, or what they could look up online as far as YouTube videos or anything like that?
um, yeah,
Or
so for
or maybe something specific like, we'll look up on YouTube, blah blah blah.
what do you mean for content creation and like in what aspect? Like
Just
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 in
how
equipment?
to just how to like get started and learn other stuff that you were referring to,
Yeah, so
like the STVs and stuff like that. Or whatever.
oh, the VSTs.
VT, yeah,
So
sorry.
we all know that there is someone out there who has dropped information for everything, and I've done a lot of learning through YouTube myself.
Hmm.
But I guess starting from the beginning, you're gonna want a decent laptop that would be able to power your DAW. And this is for production as well, not just content creation, but a decent laptop or computer. You're gonna want an audio interface, probably at least a two channel. That way you could do your MIDI and your microphone. And then you have your headphones that plug into it. And you can actually get probably a microphone and audio interface pack for what was the number we saw? I think it was like $200, something like that.
I think it was
Scarlett
two.
Solo.
I
Yeah,
think it was two.
Solo has a great introductory price, and it'll definitely get you moving and grooving. Um, and at least it won't break the bank, or it won't be so far off where you can't even get started. And then
Okay.
if you decided, some people decide to change their mind, they don't follow through, well, why buy a bunch of expensive equipment if you're not going to follow through on it? But as you build your brand, build your name, and you start making income, don't forget to reinvest in, because you are running a business essentially. Don't forget to reinvest into your business. Upgrade your computer or laptop, upgrade your interface, upgrade your mic, upgrade your headphones, put it
Yeah, you
back
gotta spend
into
money to make
production.
money.
Exactly.
Uh,
But also don't ever stop learning. So taking
I
now
think
YouTube.
I think just as in generally universal with everything, information's your best tool.
It is. And back to your question, circling back to the basis of this, using YouTube, use YouTube to compare. Look up comparisons between headphones, look up comparisons between mics, look up if you have a particular DAW that you started using, whether it be Reaper, FL Studio, Pro Tools, Ableton, GarageBand. I think Google Chrome has like their own audio workshop now as well.
Oh, really?
Um,
Didn't know that.
yeah. They've had that actually at least since 2020 that I'm aware of.
Hmm.
But look those up. Look up comparisons on YouTube. Type in the different DAWs you're looking at, and search for comparison and watch a number of videos and see if you can get like a general consensus of what people are saying in comparison to those. If you've already chosen your DAW, start looking like for EQ, EQ VSTs or sound VSTs or filters. But also keep in mind that there are a lot of VSTs out there that are paid or trying to source information from you, because a lot of companies want you to sign up with your email, and then you're going to get an unlimited number of ads and stuff in your
I
spam
was gonna say
box.
you can get bombarded in your spam box, huh?
Right, right.
Yeah.
But watch those comparison videos, but also keep in
Okay.
mind that there are a lot out there that do the exact same thing as simply adding a certain amount of EQing or adding a low pass filter or a little bit of reverb. If you truly learn how to use the tools you already have, there's no need to really go out and get a lot of these VSTs.
Yeah,
With
because
some of these other
there's tons of videos comparing different mics and headphones and stuff,
exactly, and that's honestly
and
probably
audio
the number one
interfaces
place.
too, like you were talking about.
Yeah, that's honestly probably the number one place because that's your ground level equipment. If you're trying to get into content creation just in a general, you're gonna want to look up cameras as well. But you'll want to start watching individuals that you want to emulate. Like look at your favorite streamers and start taking notes of the formula that they use for their production. You know, do they follow a similar routine through every video? Do they stay within a certain genre? Um, do they, you're going to want to be very perceptive in the material that you take in and you want to emulate. Like who do you want to be like? And that will kind of give you a goal to shoot for, but then you need to kind of structure that goal of like, okay, what steps do I need to take in order to get to that goal? And that is going to help you out immensely. Research and learning is that's top tier. And I'm sure
That's
everyone's heard
going.
the phrase
That's
practice
also
makes
going.
perfect.
Right. That's also going back to information's the best tool you could get or
It
have.
really is. Everybody knows knowledge is power. Well,
Right.
knowledge is potential power. It depends on what you do with that knowledge. That's where the true power is. So, yeah.
Facts.
Um,
If,
but yeah.
so I want to go back to what you were just referring to a few minutes ago when you was talking about mastering or mixing. What were you gonna say about that?
In regards to the headphones, so I
Oh,
picked
okay.
up a particular set because I myself I'm still in my learning process. I haven't perfected it by any means. And I was going to say, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes progress. So I'm progressing every day. But I picked up a certain set of headphones, so the VSX headphones. It does cost a fair amount of money, and I don't suggest investing in them until you've gotten the basics down and know what you're doing to some degree. But the Stephen Slate Audio VSX, there's a program which emulates different environments in which you'll be listening to. I used to bounce my songs out quite frequently to whether it be my brother or close friends, whatever projects I was working on, I'd use them as my whiteboard to go ahead and transfer to my phone and bring that out to my car, and go ahead and play it in my car and see what it was going to sound like, and then play it through headphones and what have you. Well, with this particular program and headphones, it immediately just emulates those environments, and I can get a real time. Okay, this is what it's going to sound like, and it's helped me out immensely in the mastering side of my production. As far as mixing, uh, gain staging, highly important. Adding appropriate EQ. I think a lot of beginner mistakes happen in the EQing process and adding or subtracting way too much EQ from certain sounds. But we need to remember that a little goes a long way. And you need to EQ with purpose. Like everything you do in the music making process should be done with purpose.
That's a very
Kind
good
of
point.
kind of with life. Move
Yeah.
with purpose.
As I was gonna
Everything
say, that's
with
kind of
purpose.
like a life, like some life advice too. There, just move with purpose and try to
Hmm.
figure out what you want to do and focus on your goals and everything else.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's like a for this, me trying to get this started and everything else. I've dealt with a lot of health issues, and then like my living situation isn't the greatest, so it's
Yeah.
conflicted with me trying to do stuff, especially like making videos and stuff like that. And then, like I said,
Hmm.
start this.
Yeah.
Um, so are you going to school for this too,
I
or
am. I am.
is that did it progress from like you starting off learning like you were talking about and stuff? Like if you were talking to somebody just said they wanted to get started and stuff, I mean the most important thing is just start, of course.
Just start.
Just
Like,
start.
yeah, I mean, you can't get into an arena without starting.
Right.
So
So
take that first step.
just start learning online, and then if you want to go to school and learn other stuff or maybe online classes or something like that, what would be the
Yes.
courses you would offer, I mean not offer, but recommend that they should look into?
So it depends on your level of knowledge. The way
Okay.
I did it, I can only speak from my own personal experiences, and hopefully, someone will resonate with and be like, oh, I could probably use that. Um, but with myself, I had spent, I think, about 2 years just learning my Dawn and messing around and trying to emulate other songs.
Gotcha.
I keep forgetting to hit my mouse here. Sorry, I keep going on standby.
Oh, it's okay.
Um, but
I still
I
hear
did
you.
that for two
We still
years,
hear you.
and
It's all
then
good.
okay. Um, I did that for 2 years. And then last year, I actually went through a producer's course where you had the opportunity to make music. We'd have like weekly meetings over Zoom. You would make a beat, and then you would submit it. And it was being held by someone who's already in the sync licensing industry, who's already been, selling their music to larger corporations. They've done jingles and stuff like that. And so that's actually something that's way invaluable is learning from people who are already where you want to be. I'm sure everybody's also heard that phrase, hang out with those or emulate those that you want to be like, because we are the total sum of the closest five people that we spend time with. And also, when you're in a group
That's a
of
good point.
like-minded individuals,
Hmm.
yeah, when you're in a group of like-minded individuals, life will progress in the manner that you want it to be. Um,
It's like
but
if you're living one way, then you decide like you're really good friends with people you grew up with and stuff like that. And I recently, I know I'd shared this video with you. I don't know if you had time to watch it. Um, I've been in therapy again since the beginning of the year, and my
Mhm.
therapist was telling me about this guy, this pastor named Jerry Flowers, and he
Yeah.
has this special called cheat codes and stuff, and um, off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the YouTube channel, but he has like tons of good stuff on there.
Mhm.
And I'll link it below in the description or whatever if anybody wants to check that out. But there, in the first episode of Cheat Codes, he's talking. He's very relatable too, by the way. But he's talking about how he was hanging out with friends and stuff, and he's a Christian and everything, and he was sitting there talking to him about stuff, and he was just like they was about to quit or whatever for the day. They was all playing basketball and stuff, and he was like wanting to lead them in prayer before they left or whatever. And he was one of his friends was like, "Man, I ain't trying to hear that. I'm trying to go get these hoes." And I'm like, "Wow." And I'm sitting there like, I had some friends like that, you know. And then
Right.
he was just like, because he hadn't hung out with them quite some time or whatever. And then he was like, now I kind of. Then other stuff started unfolding. And he's like, now I kind of remember why I don't hang out with these guys much anymore, sadly. And it's
Yeah.
because of some of their ways and stuff that it's not what he wanted in life or where his life was going, and he didn't want to be a part of, or not exactly associated, but he didn't want stuff that they were doing in his life because that's not the path he wanted to go down. Like with his goals, that stuff's not aligning with his goals or any, or sorry,
Exactly.
or his, excuse me, or anything else.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah,
you were
and that,
just
that's
saying,
that's
like-minded
exactly it.
people.
And if you take the time for school, so I went from that producer course, and now I'm at my local college, and I knew where I was lacking. I took a sound recording course to work on and I almost said perfect, but practice and progress in my mixing and mastering. I learned a lot of other useful information about specifics of microphones and speakers and how sound waves work. Um, and that started to also put me in the realm of like-minded individuals. Like these are other individuals that have a passion for music and want more knowledge from music. I
I,
knew
I
I was
was
also
I was gonna say at one point too. That's another good point though. Like once you get started and you start learning more stuff, you could spread out to like finding other people that's part of that, air quotation marks community. Other
yep.
people that are like minded want to learn more music or more music production and everything else, and you meet more people and everything else, and then you decide you want to go to school for it too. You're taking classes, in-person classes with other people and stuff that has them similar goals to what yours are as far as music goes, and that's something where you could form new relationships with people and stuff like that.
And that leads to another part. So to finish off that first thought of, I knew I was also lacking in my music theory side in
Hmm.
composition. Plus, my compositions tend to lean a little bit more classical, uh, in within the genres that I'm working with. So I knew I needed to learn a little bit more music theory. Well, that surrounded me even more with individuals that are like-minded, and that eventually led me the opportunity to work with the opera singer that I did in my most recent release. But something got brought up by a couple of my professors recently is going to higher education And learning things isn't just getting knowledge, the specific knowledge for the field you're looking for. It's also opening doors and ability to network and meet new people that are in that
Right.
arena. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because that could
exactly
be
what you were just
very.
talking about.
I mean, I think it's beneficial, period, to that most
Hmm.
likely. But
Hmm.
the whole networking things. Maybe there's someone you met or whatever. Then 2 years later, they're working on or making for music production for like I don't want to say names, but like big artists or something, or like how you was talking about movies and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, I know somebody else that blah blah blah," and then they could, they're talking about you and bringing you in.
Exactly, and that is the road that I'm on right now. It's been highly suggested that I attend a particular college in Southern California, and that is a part of the reason. I mean, there are ties already there with my what's called my current professors,
Hmm.
that would help get in that door. But that is a, kind of exactly the direction that they were talking about with the ability to network, because that school also is film school. It's not just music, but it has a very fruitful film department, or film section of their art department. And so working with student directors, but a lot of people go from that school and they can end up working with already established composers of let's say like Universal Films, or DreamWorks, or any of the larger cinematic, not distributors, um larger cinematic bodies. So you go work with one of those composers, and until you create a name for yourself. So it's like a stepping stone, because the further you get into it, the more avenues are opened up to you. But once again, everything starts with that first step. Uh, so yeah, the further and further you get into it, and the harder you push, you'll see more avenues opening up to you. And it's up to you to take those opportunities, to make the best use of those opportunities.
And that also applies universally, just with anything, just
True,
getting in
it
there.
really
And
is.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, another topic I would like to ask you about moving into it is another thing when you're meeting more people and stuff like that, community and everything else.
Mhm.
For all you know, you can end up meeting your significant other because of that.
True,
I mean, you could either that or you end up meeting someone that ends up becoming your best friend for the rest of your life. Just,
true.
just again, relationships and everything else, community. So the next thing I want to ask you about, or talk to you about, is like relationships,
Mhm.
whether you want to speak on like romantically or family or anything else. What is your at what point, or actually first let me ask you about values.
Yeah.
What in a romantic relationship, what do you think is the best values, and then what are signs or how do I word this? Signs or maybe red flags in a significant or romantic relationship to where you should start rethinking about that relationship if you want to be in it or not.
This is
Do you have anything to really, I mean, I know it's a complex question, but do you have just, maybe off the top of your head, like thoughts or advice for people?
this is quite the pivot, but I see the segue that you're making here. And let me try to keep this related in the realm, to try to make this smooth. So if you have goals that you're striving for, and you really want to make come true, you want to surround yourself with a support network. If
Very
anybody out
true.
there has spoken to a therapist, or has done any research into psychology, it's important to be in supportive environments, or at least try to cultivate a supportive environment yourself. People may not have the healthiest home life, but it doesn't mean that you can't seek out or surround yourself with supportive people in your friend circle, in your social circles. Um, and so while you're working toward your goals, it's important to have people that are helping to motivate you, or taking the time to support in some degree, whether they listen to your productions, or words of encouragement, what have you. As far as the friend aspect, that's, I mean, kind of just covered that. You know, it's good to have supportive friends. Red flags definitely are those that are only around during good times, or they're kind of take. There's a lot of naysayers that are out there, or individuals that, you know, if they don't really have much good to say quite often, because
Hmm.
I've had a number of friends in my own life that, you know, every time we spoke, it was kind of just like complaints of life. That will take its toll after a while. You know, you definitely want to.
That right
Uh,
there is also, it's just like not it's mental and physical. It could be
yes.
very draining and exhausting.
Very much so. Very much so. And so it's important to pick and choose who you spend time with. And so even from that friend level, building up now into a significant other level, I think on a significant other level, partner level, you want, that's more important than anything. You want someone who's going to be there, have your back, and support you and encourage you. And support can come in many ways. I don't necessarily mean, you know, like financial support by any means,
Hmm.
but someone who's gonna push you to be better every day, you know, be the best version of yourself. It may, I know for a lot of people it may be tough, because we have hard time with that motivation. Sometimes you want to be lazy, or you may be in a rut or something like that,
Or
and
procrastinate.
just and don't or procrastinate
Yeah.
and don't really have it in you. And you know, you may not want to hear, hey, you should be doing this, you know, or get moving, or did you work on that project today, or what have you. It may not be what you want to hear at that point in time, but it is important because they do want the best for you. That's a total green flag right there. Um, but
I
yeah,
agree
someone
with
who
that.
takes your time and energy and kind of takes you for granted. Oh, dude, those are big time red flags. Like, yeah, you
Right.
don't want that.
I do think you know, when you really think about it, I think that's probably the most, especially like the way, especially here in the US, like how bad mental health and stuff is now
Oh, for
for
sure.
a lot of people. You know, when you really
Mm,
think about it and you really analyze everything, I think
mm.
that that should be like maybe the number one thing you look for now, is that supportive, if they're supportive to you, not necessarily financially, but just like that support network that you're referring to.
Right, right. And it's, I think even before you seek out for the support or positivity from others, you need to cultivate that within yourself. You need to have belief in yourself. You need to have love for yourself. You need to know your strength. And you need to have a definitive goal of where you want to be. You know, health first before health from others, because
Mm-hmm.
everything else is kind of icing on the cake. Like, you need that first motion to get the ball rolling within self, uh before you can get that perpetual motion, you know, helping hand from others. Otherwise you're just kind of expecting others, or relying on the
That.
heavy lifting of others to keep you going, and people will get tired. I mean, you know, as we just spoke about, you know,
Mm-hmm.
others will drain your time and energy and effort, and you don't really want to be around that. Well, you don't want to be that individual that others don't want to be around. So yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah.
we need to remember that, dude, we have strength within us. We are powerful individuals. We have potential, and we should strive to achieve that potential.
And there's some people that's you there's some people that will take longer than others to help them
Oh,
by
for
being
sure.
supportive, because everyone's different. They're, you know, we talk chemical imbalances and everything else, right? So like
For sure.
everybody functions differently. Some people, it's gonna take them longer to get themselves straight. Is But
Entirely.
it
Entirely.
extremely would be helpful if everybody was supportive and had like a support network. It would be, you know,
Entirely.
it's something that you definitely want or help or hope to find with
Hmm.
people. But if you're you know, the one thing I would say is, if you're just constantly, I know it's very like, I'm be honest, I mean, you know this, but I'm going through it with my family. It's hard.
Hmm.
It's hard when it's family members, especially when
Oh,
you're
of course.
stuck living with them or around them, you know, constantly and everything else. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very exhausting and draining, not just mentally, physical, but your heart, your soul, and then it messes with your, like I said, mental messes with your mind, and and then the whole stress and everything else, and then
Yeah.
another thing too is like if you're talk if or we could talk about is like addiction.
Hmm.
Addicts, I'm not trying to be offensive with that, but addicts, they sometimes they need a little more supportive, not financially, but like more supportive, someone just telling them like, you got this, just showing them that network, right, to
Yeah.
help them try to kick them habits and everything else, whatever the habit may be. And it's not just alcohol or drugs, it could be all
Hmm.
kinds of different things. There's a lot of people who has a porn addiction. There's
Right.
people that have just other things, that other how do I say, habits, right?
Hmm.
That they're addicted to, that's affecting their life in a negative way.
Right.
I mean, it
Right.
could be anything could end up being addicting and be bad for your health or bad for
Mhm.
yourself and impacts other relationships,
Right. I so I've personally dealt with a number of these addictions, and I'm many many years detached from, and it's taken time of healing and addressing things in my life to understand why. I always knew, at least from me, it was a type of like escapism,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of avoid doing what I had to do in life. But also, one of my addictions was more so an addiction to people. It was kind of like a codependency of sorts. I constantly, had to have people around me. Couldn't really spend too much time alone. Now I enjoy my alone time. I enjoy my quiet time. It
Speaking
gives
of
me.
that, that's how I used to be too when I was younger.
Hmm.
Um, I am, especially like in my mid-teens, late teens, and early 20s. I was always around so many people. So I ended
Right.
up
Right.
getting this codependency, and I wasn't always taking time for myself. And I was off and on with like really two different women. Um, and there's like a
Ooh.
codependency there that factored in or whatever, too.
Right.
And then one of them, not gonna get too much into detail
Yeah.
today, but maybe in the future. But she really did a number on me, and she
Hmm.
was just screwing me over and over and over. But I was so stupid, and I was just like so in love with her. I kept forgiving her, and she was
Hmm.
cheating on me. She was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's
Hmm.
wild. And
Hmm.
then, but that codependency, it's not, from my personal experience and other people I've met and talked to, the majority of the time, that codependency, it's a very negative thing to have. It's a very negative habit, and it's hard to kick or get rid of.
For sure. And I think in order to uh overcome that, at least from my experience, was to have the self-realization that my time and energy was important. I have value. I have worth. I'm a worthwhile human being. I'm good-hearted, good-natured. And I deserve good. Um and so I'm worthwhile to be around. So why would I want to be around those that didn't treat me as such, and didn't respect my time, energy, effort, or me as a human being? Um,
See, that
and
right there,
s-
just that
self.
alone, what you just said,
Hmm.
is something that we all need to realize and think about and keep in our minds constantly, because
Definitely.
there's too much, like I suffer from this. There's too much of these we'll say moments, right, where you just feel like, I had my phone muted, but it's going off, sorry. But
That's fine.
I had there's these moments where, and a lot of people have depression and everything else now.
Yeah.
There's these moments where you feel like you have no value, no self-worth, and that's not true. You have
Mhm.
value and you have self-worth, but it's just like, maybe it goes back to the chemical imbalances and stuff or whatever. It's just like, or maybe just the world it is, your environment, right? Like if you're, it's just so bad, but like if you're surrounded by nothing but negativity, that's gonna influence you, period. There's no
It
way
does.
around it. That's why you just gotta. The only, I'm sorry, the only way to get out of that negative environment or that negativity is to surround yourself with people with that's positive, the positivity, and having that
Mhm.
great support network. It all goes. It's like full circle. It all seems like it goes back to that supportive network.
It honestly, that is a step one. A good support network and self-love and self-respect. Those
Right.
really are that's like the trifecta or the duality of your foundation. You need to love yourself and or at least respect yourself, and then build up to loving yourself, and from there cultivate a good strong foundation of support network. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to raise a human being, period. Um,
That's a good point too.
and there's a reason that these old analogies are around. They hold weight. They hold truth to them.
They're
Um,
generations, hundreds of
yeah,
years and stuff.
exactly.
It seems like.
Hundreds of years.
Yeah. That's
So,
pretty crazy too when
yeah,
you think about it.
yeah, yeah.
um, what if you could name like just three red flags off the top of your heads, like in a relationship? What would it be? I know it's a random question. I'm
Um,
just for people
let's
out there,
see.
maybe,
Uh, n
or maybe I say red flags or something. Maybe they should just kind of not forget. Just maybe keep an eye on that, whatever that situation or trait is, or something in somebody, or
Lack of communication is a big one because I think a
yeah,
healthy
that's a good
relationship
one.
starts with communication. The next one being time together. I understand that people have busy lives, and that is totally understandable. We all have work, we have our social circles, and as we get older, we find more and more things to fill up our time.
Right.
But when
Speaking about the time too, what you just
yeah,
said.
yeah.
Um, Time together, yes, but there's also you need to also make time for yourself
Oh, very much so. There isn't just
because that goes back to
that's
what
what
you
I'm
were
saying
talking
though, is
about,
you
the
still have your
self
social
worth, self
circles.
value, and yeah,
Yeah.
correctly, right,
You
right,
still have your social circles, and so that it is very important to still maintain a sense of independency,
and the
because
identity,
that's actually the better word for it, your sense
yeah,
of identity, because you are still yourself. Don't ever make anyone your everything, because if they don't live up to your expectations, that means your whole world's
you're
gonna come
setting
crashing
yourself
down
up to fail, or
entirely,
right,
entirely. It's
or for
it's
that
great to have
relationship to
someone.
fail. Sorry,
Yeah, it's great to have someone that you respect highly, and you very much value their time, and who they are and everything that they bring to their life, for sure. But to have someone be your everything, that's a very dangerous title, and it's also to have someone put that title on you. Come on, that already puts an immense amount of pressure on you. But for
that's a
someone,
good point too.
the red flags you were talking about, if you have a partner that doesn't communicate with you, if you're trying to communicate with them, um and they're not reciprocating that communication, if there doesn't seem to be an effort of time, attempt to put in time to invest and help grow that relationship, that's definitely a red flag. And this goes alongside with the communication, but if you're communicating how you feel about something and you are your thoughts are essentially being invalidated rather than listening and and uh and acknowledging that, like, hey, whatever you're doing, it hurts me, makes me not feel well, or what have you, and they kind of toss it off to the side,
Hmm.
or don't respond in a sense of, oh, I'm sorry that if you feel that way, let's try to make make this better. Respect your if you don't get respect, time, and communication, that's probably the base three right there.
So
um
communication, time, and what's the third one?
Respect.
Respect.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, yeah. That's and honestly, and yeah, the longer you stay in a relationship, the harder it is to get out of it. So if it's an off the bat kind of thing, it's honestly, and they don't care to hear what you have to say about those things,
Hmm.
to try to foster that healthy relationship, yeah, okay, you know what?
Well,
Healthy boundary. I'm sorry, but this isn't going to work. We should probably do our own things.
that goes back to like what you were just talking about. The number one thing probably is communication.
Exactly.
It
Exactly.
if one of you is feeling a certain way or something or stuff's going wrong, and that's just not romantically. That applies to other relationships as well. And you try to talk to them about it, and they don't want to talk about it, shrug it off, or anything else. I wouldn't say give up immediately, but if there's like this prolonged period where you're trying to work through stuff and not, um, they're just not having it, then that's probably at the point where you should back out, cut your losses.
Yeah, if you're noticing patterns
Hmm.
of yeah, if you're noticing patterns of where they're not trying, if they're not putting, I mean, that's once again that's the effort thing. If they don't appear to be putting in the effort that you're attempting to put in via communication, that seems entirely one-sided. Like any friendships, romantic relationships, working partnerships, if there isn't a give and take and ebb and flow, a partnership, then why would you dump your all into it? It's very one
And
that's gonna do nothing but drain you.
and see, like you're saying that, my birthday's in 12 days. Okay,
Oh, happy early birthday, dude.
oh, thank you, but it's taken me almost 40 years to finally realize that.
Hmm.
Oh, I showed my age. Oh, but but it has. It's taken me that long to like really realize that.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's taken me that long because of where I'm at in life. If I had known that when I was way younger, I'd be
Hmm.
way better off. I'd be, who knows what I could be doing. So if you're someone that's younger, that's some good advice to really think about. Realize don't sacrifice your self value, self worth, or happiness for someone that may not be there tomorrow.
Right, right. Now that also doesn't mean that, you need to go through your life just by yourself.
No, no,
But
I'm
be
not saying that
wise,
at all.
pick and choose and be observant. There you go. That's probably the best way to put it.
There you
Be
go. It
observant
be observant,
about
yeah.
the people you surround yourself with.
And that's
Yeah.
don't sit there and drown yourself with someone that's not making any kind of effort to improve themselves or your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, we're only here for a short time. Life is short. None of us are promised tomorrow. So don't don't do that to yourself. Don't rob yourself of being happy or having better relationships with people, you know, in life just because you're completely fixed on this one individual or
Right.
relationship, whatever. And that
But also
applies
don't.
that applies to everything. I know it's a little harder with with your children or your parents or something like that. It's a
Mhm.
lot harder. I mean, because at the end of the day, that's still your child or your parent, your mother, father, whatever.
Mhm.
You know, it's just maybe distance yourself some or something like that. Maybe I don't know.
But also, don't throw away a good thing if you have, minor like, well,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
like
Like you,
if you
you
have like
have
a
to.
minor hiccup,
Yeah,
like
because no relationship's perfect. There's gonna be ups and downs, and there's
exactly.
don't throw away 10 years or 5 years or something, just because this
Be-
this fool isn't acting the way you want them to act now.
I mean, one disagreement, like once again, communicate. And communicate is
That
key,
I was gonna say that
honestly.
goes back exactly to what you're saying. It's the number one value probably, and that's
Yeah,
communication.
exactly. Communicate. And if it's some honestly minute in the grand scheme of things, come on, we're human,
Hmm.
and to error is to be human. The other thing is don't toss something good because you see something that may be
That
better
eye
in the
candy or
moment.
something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Don't throw away a good thing.
don't toss away a good thing. Or
Yeah,
even if you're just going through, like you said, a few hiccups or something like that, don't throw that away just for some eye
exactly.
candy or one night or something like that. And that's a problem
Exactly.
that's, with our society now too. People do that. You got Tinder and all these other apps and people do crazy stuff. And then someone they've been with for 7 years, 8 years or some 3 years, and they throw away like that whole relationship just for one night of I'll say pleasure or whatever the
Right.
case is, you know. And
Right.
that's
Then
stupid.
why'd you put in all that work to begin with?
Exactly. Like why? Now it's like you saying that we make errors and everything else. We're all flawed, but it
We are.
don't make that dumb mistake. Don't,
The best way
you
I try to
know.
live my life is we all have a conscience.
Mhm.
We deep down we know what's right and what's wrong. And if even if you have that inkling or if you have to even question it of, is this the right thing? Ah, don't do it.
There
Like
there
if there's
is
even a question mark, don't do
right.
it.
Yeah, if you have to think about it for a second, just for a
Yeah.
second, like, should I be doing this? It's probably something your ass shouldn't be doing,
Right,
you know.
right.
And then the other thing is, I just thought of too, is like when you're talking about the respect, it accept responsibility. If you messed up, you need to say, look, I messed up. I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. You know, accept that. Own it. Own it. Own up to it. That other person, that other individual, they'll respect you more for that.
Be honest
Usually.
with yourself and be honest with those around you. Like
Yeah.
it's not always the easiest thing to do. I trust me, I know this. And that was the thing I had to work on many, 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 many years. But life is so much easier because when you're honest within yourself, you see the world so much clearly.
Exactly.
And being honest, people aren't always gonna like it. People will come and go, because not everyone wants to hear the truth as well. But it will make life easy. Because yeah, if you are around people that don't want to hear the truth either, what good is that going to do you as well? Um,
So
yeah,
again, the three: communication, time, respect.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I don't know how much more time we have, but there is one last topic I would like to ask you about.
Yeah.
It's a little out, kind of iffy, but a few days,
Mhm.
2024 election night. How
Okay.
crazy has this been?
It's
It's
been
been
a wild
wild.
ride.
Yeah.
I feel like this year has kind of been in the making for the past number of elections and many years.
Hmm.
Coming, we're kind of coming to a head. I will just be happy when it's over because I'm tired of commercials and arguing and
So,
advertisements and everything else. It's wild.
speaking on that,
Yeah.
yes, yes, gosh, yes. I'll be glad when it's over. Um,
Right.
so I live in Texas for those who don't know, and I swear I see so many call-in all red ads. It blows
Mhm.
my mind. And then part of me is like, where is he getting all this money? You'll see a Ted Cruz one, which I'm not gonna lie, I love Ted Cruz. He ain't perfect, but that dude really does care about Texas and people here and tries to do stuff right. Not perfect again, but he really does try and cares for people. So you I don't even see half the ads for Ted Cruz I see for Colin Allred. And I'm like, geez, it's wild. And then I hear other people, I've talked to other people in different states, and they say the same thing. So it's like, man, Tuesday can't come fast enough, be over.
Right. Right.
Um, I I'm not gonna ask you who you vote for, or if you're going to vote or anything like that. But
Mhm.
I, it's really wild that, like, if we go back in time, uh, I don't know where your ideology or anything like that lines up with, but it's really weird to me because I didn't really start paying attention, like real attention to politics, till like I think it was Obama was trying to get in office, or he did get in office, and then he was going for re-election, something like that.
Mhm.
But it was like the Democratic Party used to be the party that really cared about the people and like the low class and middle class and people behind below the poverty line and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how far you are into politics, but is that right or is that wrong?
Um, I don't know. I've never, how do I put it? I was never really too politically involved
Okay,
until, probably somewhere around like the past,
maybe like
yeah,
2016 or something like that. when you really
Maybe,
start watching? Or
or maybe even 2020,
okay,
and started looking back. Uh, it's so this is something that I'll have to look back into myself. That was
okay.
I will admit that was the assumption that I
Or
had.
your
I
assumption.
can't,
Okay, that's a
yeah,
good way to
I,
put it.
I
I'm sorry. Yeah, that was
yeah,
always been my assumption, is that
yeah.
they that's the party that really tried to fight for you.
And that I would say that's probably an agreeable assumption that I had.
Okay.
But the way I try to approach life, people say things or do things that I may not agree with.
Hmm.
It's almost like a Buddhist mindset in a way. It's acceptance through understanding. The more you understand about a situation, the better it is to, well, I mean, you're going to become intelligent about that particular situation. You're going to understand it as a whole, how its effect is on the environment, what its true purpose is or its true meaning is, and therefore accept it as just being an action, an entity, of being here in the universe, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm not saying to, accept bad things happening in your life, but you'll spend less time being angry about those things. That's kind of what I mean about the acceptance. You can still choose to avoid or act in the opposition of, things that you don't agree with in life. But you won't be sitting there toiling over them, and it won't ruin your whole day,
That's a
week,
good
month,
point.
year, what have you.
Right.
But as long as we strive to understand the purpose of things in the grand scheme. So going back to the initial question, and the assumption is I would have to go back and do some research and see, what votes were cast, what was going on in society at the time, what parties were moving in what manners, to get a better understanding of what was going on, and see if that assumption is truly true or not.
That's
um
a very, very intelligent, good way to put it. Because
oh,
you have to think about, whenever you're looking at these different time periods, what was going on in the world, or at that time, what was going on. That's a good point.
Right, and we would have to know, were certain policies that were passed during those offices being held, were they truly in favor of low income or the less fortunate,
Hmm.
the sociologically forgotten, societally forgotten, um, and was that truly the case, or is it just mere assumption that we're basing more than likely off of, I don't want to say political propaganda, but like mm, political speech, I guess. I mean, technically, for a lack of words, I guess propaganda, because that's what political speech usually is. That's what
Right.
campaigns are.
And
Is they're marketing.
there's when you look at both parties, I really wish there was a third party choice, but I don't know
It's
how that would work, because then you have, it's easier when it's two parties, but at the same time, like with both parties, it's like there's bad actors in both.
there are.
And my thing with politics has always kind of been like, whatever you if you get elected, do what you said you were gonna do. That's why people were voting for you.
Yes.
So it doesn't, to me, it never really mattered, Democrat or Republican, because again, there's bad actors on both, then there's good actors on both.
Yep.
And like this election, though, speaking specifically, well, let me go back to 2020. The Democratic Party had all these people that was running to get the candidacy or whatever.
Mhm.
And of course, I'll be upfront, I wanted Yang to win. I mean, Bernie may have done better, I'm not sure, but like they had all these people running. Kamala Harris was one of the people that was running, and all of them was just, I know people are going to get mad and everything else because of politics, but they were bad. I'm like, y'all don't have, one of my friends, you may have said this too before to me. They don't really have like what you would refer to as superstars. You know what I mean? Like you don't have nobody you could really push that people really like.
Right.
And I, whenever you looked at Yang's rallies and stuff like that, though, there were so many people there. He's all over social media. So,
Right.
um, and then you see him on the debate stage and stuff. All them signs was there with Joe Biden, like the dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever. It was all there. Don't, cut the BS. I know some people are going to be like, no, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. You guys had better candidates you could have put out there. Whether, I feel like part of the reason they didn't want Yang, and I'll talk about this too. Part of the reason they didn't want to push Yang or anything else is because of him not being some like white man. Maybe a little racism to it, possibly. And the reason I say that is because Harris is now their pick and stuff or whatever. And I think she would have done better, or the Democrats would have done better, if she would have picked Josh Shapiro as her running mate instead of Tim Walz. But they didn't want him because he's Jewish.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's crazy, you know? But anyway, so going back to like the 2020 though, I don't think they should have picked Biden. And then the way in these last, 4 years basically, these last 4 years, their policies and all the stuff they have done has blown my mind. It's crazy. And the most craziest thing to me that they have done besides inflation and everything else, and we could go back saying, maybe some of that inflation is from Obama or Trump, whatever. But my main thing is like the border and immigration. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This whole catch and release policy they have is fucking wild. It is bonkers. I learned more about that stuff in the past week because I already knew it was bad. But I've learned so much more in the past, like, actually, like 2 weeks about it. It's so crazy. Like, I don't know how much you know about it. So they come across the border and they have this app, and it's a shipping app, and they can file for asylum or whatever to come in. So their policy of catch and releases, they could come over illegally through the border and stuff and everything else, and then it's like, okay, you have to come back and go to court or whatever, but they catch them, then they release them into the U.S. Then the court, there's so many cases, and the court is so backed up, they're allowed to be here with a work permit for like 15 years. That is wild.
That is kind of wild. Yeah.
And then I'm like,
That's
and then what's crazy too is I just recently watched Dr. Phil. He
Mhm.
did this special where he's down there in Arizona with the Border Patrol and everything else. And these people that are coming across, they're wearing like carpet on the bottom of their shoes because they're walking through like we'll say desert or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of is a desert or is a desert, whatever. So they're coming across, they're walking through these areas, and they're wearing carpet on the bottom of the shoes. It's so they can't be tracked by Border Patrol because of the footprints, right?
As soon as you said the carpet, I already knew it was kind of a quick version of like carrying a branch behind you to sweep your footprints.
There you go.
That's
Yep.
that's wild.
Yep.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're doing that. Okay, so Border Patrol can't tax them, but there's also this thing they're referring to as I think it was called war parties, right? And the war
Oh,
parties is they're trafficking people, and they're also bringing in drugs. The war parties is trying to intercept these people that's coming through to either steal the people for trafficking or take the drugs from them. And then
so are
I'm
you saying
just
like coyotes are bringing drugs and or people, and then
no, no, no.
these
Like
war
the
parties are
cartel and all these people are coming in illegally, right?
yeah yeah yeah
Okay. So there's these other people,
the war
the
parties.
war parties, that are trying to intercept them from getting to where they're going to steal the drugs from them for themselves to go sell or whatever. Or they're also taking people and trafficking them people for themselves.
That's so it sounds like a cartel war on our side.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that's
it's crazy. And
huh.
it's
I'd have to
if
do some reading into
they
that. I haven't heard
if
anything about that.
I'll link you the video so you can watch it when you have some time too, because it's
Okay.
crazy. Because like um, I will say these border patrol agents that he's talking to or whatever, and
Mhm.
he's riding with and stuff. Man, them are them border patrol agents are savage. They are so good at what they do usually, because like they're and one of them he's talking about the experience and everything else. They could track, like, if a car is going down the road, and you
Yeah.
can see how it's lowered or whatever because of weight and stuff, that usually means they have extra people in there they're transferring. And what they're doing is they're posting on social media like $3,500 for ride, $1,500 for ride, blah blah, and they're getting these kids that are like under 18 to transport these people, and they pay them like I said so much money or whatever because they know that because they're underage,
Our legal system.
yeah, once they're 18, that's going to get wiped from their record usually. I think
Mm.
that might be a state by state thing. I'm not entirely sure about that.
Mm.
But what they're also doing is they're lining up other rides. So if a cop pulls this one over, the other one can keep going because now the border patrol agents or police or whatever are
Occupied.
distracted. Yes,
Yeah.
but distracted by pulling over the other one. It's crazy. Like I'll link it to you. For anyone listening, you should go watch it. It's on the Dr. Phil Primetime. I'll link it below, but it's in the Dr. Phil Primetime
I would
channel.
no. Is this like actual video evidence of this?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm
'Cause I
saying.
mean,
This is crazy.
so I mean, and the reason I asked that is, our old millennial phrase of saying Pixar didn't happen.
Mhm.
I would like to see
They're
actual.
showing the agents, some of the agents
Yeah.
when Dr. Phil's with them, they pull him over, and there's one guy. He's like 15, driving, or
Got
16,
you.
and he's like,
Got you.
"Oh yeah, these are my cousins." He was like, "Oh, what was their names? Carlos, Anna, and something, right?" And he's like, "Okay." The cop waits a few minutes. The border patrol agent waits a few minutes. And he goes, "Oh, what'd you say their names was?" Completely different names.
Got you.
That's how they know. Like, yeah, yeah. But it's a crazy situation down there. So like that alone, to me, is like there's some people that don't care about that, like up north more, because they don't have to worry about they're not getting bombarded or flooded with these illegal immigrants and stuff. They're not dealing with all that crap. So to them, it's like out of sight, out of mind. I'm gonna still vote blue
Right.
because let's
Right.
let's be frank and let's be honest. Trump and Vance, they're they're way more equipped to handle that situation than Harris and Waltz. And then one it this is one thing too about that really is crazy. One of the agents or whatever that Dr. Phil's talking to, he he's talking about some documents or something. I don't want to quote stuff because I don't want to get it wrong. But he has some document stuff, and I think he was referring to or talking about ways they could fix the
Mhm.
situation in the border. He takes it to Mayorkas, who is I think I don't know if the correct title is director or whatever, Homeland Security, whatever. He
Mhm.
takes the documents to Mayorkas. Him and several other border patrol agents have like a meeting or something, and then they nothing happens. Then he meets Mayorkas again, and Mayorkas is like, "Oh, it's nice to meet you. There's your sign." And then he's like, "We met. I gave you documents." And he's like, "Oh, you gave me documents? That fool never read them." You know, it's that alone to me. Just the whole immigration thing is, and the catch and release policy is baffling. It's crazy. That alone, I'm just like, yeah, you guys are. That's not even counting like all the other crazy stuff that they've done in the last 4 years or where their ideologies or policies lie now.
Right.
Um, there's Sarah Huckabee Sanders did a, I guess, rebuttal to, I think, whenever Biden did a State of the Union or did some speech. And
Mhm.
she said it best, and it's something that most Americans I do think about, is that a lot of this stuff is just crazy. They're insane. I don't know. Waltz was wanting to put tampons in the boys' bathroom or something. There's like, I don't know everything about that, so, but there's so much woke stuff in there too that they try to do, and a lot of it's just like, you fools need Jesus, and then you need Jesus in the classrooms and everything else, and like the drag shows to these little elementary kids and stuff, they don't need to be exposed to that at that young age, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I mean, I could say tons of more stuff about it, but
So
go
a
ahead.
number of things politically. I think there's a high amount of, for lack of words, fanaticism. Like a lot of people treat politics like their favorite football team.
Hmm.
Like, I've been rooting for this team for so many years, and I'll ride
There's
or die for them,
that.
and I'm
That's a
gonna
perfect
stick with
way.
them.
Yeah, that's
And
a perfect way to put it because as in these last several years, I've watched now, like with the Democratic Party, there's just like this tribalism with them.
right, right. And I think the most intellectual thing we can do is it's intelligent. Like when you get new information that brings you, when you get brought new information that kind of opens your eyes to another aspect of something, it's intelligent to change your opinion based on that new information. Like, oh, I
Hmm.
didn't know that before. Okay. So say, you've been raised and you were always told that the sky was green. And you're like, all right, you're going along with it your entire life, but one day evidence is brought to you that makes you realize, oh, dang, because the sky's
You
actually blue. Uh, and it would be intelligent to, okay, except, hey, the sky's blue, as opposed to kind of arguing the moot point of what's kind of already been proven that no, the sky's not green, but still run around and say the sky's green.
That's
Um, it,
that right there's the perfect way to put it because one of my friends, he voted for Biden in 2020. He didn't really want to, but he did. Now, he sat there and told me this was like a week ago. Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, Meta, whatever. And then we know all the stuff because Elon getting Twitter or X or whatever, all the Twitter files and stuff like that.
all right.
All this stuff that was going on with Hunter's Biden laptop and all these other stories or whatever. So my friend literally told me, he said if he had known about Hunter Biden's laptop and all that crazy stuff, he would not have voted for Biden. He actually would have voted for Trump.
Got you. Got you. And the other thing I was going to get at is, we've known for many years that there are falsehoods that are portrayed through mainstream media, what have you. But it's also just as dangerous on social media.
Hmm.
A lot of people get their information or their news from social media, where everyone, I mean, think of Wikipedia. How it used to
I
be. I mean, it
have
definitely has moderators now, but it used to be anybody can go change things. So you could rewrite history according
right.
to Wikipedia, just by getting on there and writing whatever. And things have happened like that in the future. I think it was
I
like early
always
2000s or something.
Yeah, I
Um,
always thought that was crazy about Wikipedia now
but
that you brought that up.
yeah, but getting your news strictly off of social media and mainstream media is kind of dangerous. I think it's highly important as us as individuals, and it's our responsibility as individuals to be discerning of that information. Like when we hear something, we should definitely go back, double check,
Do
multiple
your own
sources.
research. Yeah, multiple
Yeah, I
sources.
mean,
Yeah.
not
I have
not
I
just
have the perfect example for that real quick. Um like how you just said it. So, I watch this podcast. I try to catch it. It's called the Whatever Podcast. It's more of a dating podcast,
okay.
but it comes on Tuesdays and Sundays and the main guy that runs it's a guy named Brian. Love that guy. And I love the show. So usually he gets like all these different women on there and stuff like that, and then he'll get like other people, debaters, and all these other stuff. So there's this one girl that comes on there, and she just blows my mind. I think she was 24. So um, she's on there, and she was talking about she's voting. Sometimes they ask, you give up for Harris, Trump, blah blah blah. They ask her, she says, "I'm gonna vote for Harris," and he's a Trump supporter. He said Trump may not be the best guy, but he's a way better for the country and than her. So he asked her, okay, so why are you voting for Harris? She's like, well, she just kind of pauses. I mean, like, we're not on camera or anything, but she kind of makes his face, and then she's just like, well, he's a threat to democracy. And then Brian's like, the main show host or whatever, he's like, how is he a threat to democracy? She can't answer the question. She can't explain to him why he's a threat to democracy. And then there was like two or three other questions, and she's repeating this rhetoric from mainstream media like NBC, MSN, all that stuff, all them other channels, that are more leftist anyway. But she's saying all this stuff, but she can't explain why. And then she's like, she finally admits it. She's like, well, that's what they say on the news.
Just repeating buzzwords or phrases that
Exactly. And then
right.
Brian just throws his hands up and he just rolls his eyes. He's like, okay, you. He goes to the next person because he's done with her at that point, you know?
And that's what I'm saying is rather than just taking things and accepting things immediately as fact, we should be discerning a bit, you know, be doubtful of life, at least just a little bit, and you know, try to be unbiased when you hear things and look into both sides and what makes more sense. If you
Mm-hmm.
need to do research into multiple layers of something, like, okay, here's one thing that may support, uh dig a little deeper than just that one thing. Is okay, so let's see if there's more information that can be proven that supports that. And then the other side, is there something that supports it on this side? Here's a
That's a good
claim.
point. Yeah.
Let's see if something supports that claim, and then let's see if there's a paper trail leading back to that support of that claim. And what honestly makes more sense. You know, everybody probably knows the phrase that if you ever want to know who's behind something, follow the paper trail, like who was getting paid, you know,
Exactly.
through the multiple layers. And in modern day, it's usually through shell companies and what have you. So you have to dig numerous layers back in order to find out, you know, what the
There
root
was,
of things are. And so
speaking,
I think we should be
oh, go
doing that
ahead.
with information as well.
Yeah. Speaking of what you just said, though, the paper trail thing, I seen something, someone was saying something to me in the last couple days that there was some bill or something, there was something anyway, that Kamala was getting like $15 million of taxpayers' monies or something. My fucking jaw dropped. I was like, "What? I don't know about it." Like I said, it's just something I heard. I don't,
Mm,
I don't know what it's about. But she
mm,
was getting $15 million of taxpayers' dollars, and I was like, "What the hell?" You know.
mm.
And then whatever that is, okay. But besides that, if you really let's they keep hollering the threat to democracy thing, but there was no democratic way for her to get in there. They just shoved her in there instead of letting people vote. That's crazy to me too. And then part of that, if I understand correctly, part of the reason for them doing it though is because like Joe Biden, because she was vice president, Biden had like a bunch of money or something that he could use for campaign ads and stuff like that or something, or his campaign or whatever or her campaign too, I guess, right? Because she was going to run as VP again,
Yeah.
and something to do about I think electoral votes or something. I'm not too sure, but that's the reason they forced her to go in there so they could keep that campaign money. And then go ahead.
So when he originally started, was she running as his VP again?
Yes.
When okay, so, and then when he withdrew, seeing as that she was already on the ticket as the VP, is that why she got bumped to president?
Yes, from what I've read, I've actually read this and stuff or whatever. I can't
Uh-huh.
remember it word from word, but and I've also seen like other people that are way more political than me that I'm friends with the stuff told me kind of basically the same thing is that they would have to use her as their pick in order to keep that money. To keep that money, and I think it has something to do with the some kind of votes or something because Biden had some kind of votes or whatever. I think it
Mhm.
was like electoral votes or something. But if they had to choose a whole new candidate, all that stuff would go away basically.
And that actually kind of makes sense. And that makes sense why she got bumped up, and then that makes sense why the votes would have got transferred over.
But it's to me, a lot of people I have good friends who are Democrats. They're like, it's not democratic for them to just push her in like that and force her on us. Because somebody I know, he uh, he didn't think Biden was the best pick or whatever, but he usually votes blue, and then that reason alone is why he's voting. He's voting for Trump now. He told me because
Did
that pissed him off so much that they're trying to gaslight the American people and just force her on people and gaslight and do all this other crazy stuff that they're doing, whatever. But I'm not saying, you know, I don't even know none of her policies that she wants to do because she hasn't everything I've watched of her, she's not explaining anything. I've watched Trump and Vance explain policies and stuff they're gonna do. I haven't heard nothing from her what she's wanting to do.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. But then, my thing with them too is like, you watch her in like these. She's hardly done interviews, and then I watched her on what's his name, Brett Breyer. It was on Fox or whatever. I watched that, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, how can people really want her? I can understand if they want Democrats to win, fine, but get it, not her, a different candidate. And I'm not against a woman president or anything like that, because if it was up to me, I think Tulsi Gabbard would be an amazing president, just saying. But, and my other thing besides the immigration is I don't see her being able to deal with Xiaoping or Putin or anyone else. I don't see that.
Yeah.
I don't think she's equipped to handle them at all. Not
Yeah.
her, I don't care what anybody says about that, because I'm open-minded. I'm not trying to be an asshole or anything, but I just don't see her being able to sit there across from Putin or something and try to tell him how it's going to be or something like that, or come to or a compromise, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Yeah.
And I seen something not too long ago where Kim Jong Young, or however you say his name. I know I'm butchering it. I can't pronounce his name right. Yeah. He made some kind of comment where he said that Harris shouldn't even be able to run. No woman should be able to run, because as far as he was concerned, women belong at his feet. My fucking jaw dropped on that, but that's a whole different culture over there, and then different countries have different cultures. But my point being is that, and I think Putin said at one point too, is like, if she wins, the United States is over. And I've heard that several times from other things, but I think Putin actually said that. But my point being is like, I just don't see how she could sit there and try to handle these dictators or anything. That's my main two things about her running as president, is the immigration problem, and that, besides inflation, but immigration and trying to handle these dictators and everything else. Because I'm to the point with all the wars and stuff. If Trump or somebody stronger, not saying just Trump, but Trump or someone stronger than Biden was in there, this stuff wouldn't have happened. All these people wouldn't have died, because that's my biggest problem with it too now, is there's too many people dying. Hamas and Iran, all that, wouldn't got that money and stuff. All them people getting killed on what was it, October 7th last year? None of that stuff would have happened, I don't think. Too many people have died because of, in my opinion, too many people died because of this administration. And I don't want another 4 years of Harris or that administration.
Fair. There's I don't know anyone's particular foreign politics or foreign policy ideals or particular background. So there's I forgot what site it was. I'll try to find the information and kick it over to you.
Okay.
And because I think it's actually a really important site for people to be able to
Yeah, I'll link it
access
in the description
and
too.
take a look at it. But the purpose of this particular site is it's a repository of it's a history of politicians' voting histories. So like whenever the
Oh,
Senate or
okay.
House takes a vote on particular issues, you can see which way each representative has voted on particular topics. And so once again, we get a lot of information.
I would be
A lot of
very interested to see that, because
yeah.
one reason, again, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I didn't want to lose my thought process on that when you was talking about it. The
Okay.
reason I was saying that is because in these, I was talking about Colin Allred earlier in the ads and stuff or whatever. I have seen something about this part though, is that Ted Cruz talks about how he has voted for, like, I think it was women and men's, or men and women's sports,
Mhm.
and agreed for it to happen like two or three times now. I think twice. So if they show that, like how you're saying what they voted on and stuff like that, I'd be interested to see that.
Exactly. I think the best way for us to protect ourselves is to become educated peoples.
Hmm.
Uh, as soon as I find a site, like I said, I'll kick it over to you, and you can go ahead and share with your listeners.
Yeah, I'll
But
put it in the description.
if we as a society become more educated, it will be harder for people to pull the wool over our eyes. But with particular topics that are hot topics, politicians can promote themselves in one way, but if you look back through their voting records and see that they voted in the exact opposite direction, you can immediately call BS because the record's literally right
Right.
there. It's a matter of public record. Uh, so I think that's probably the fastest way to fact check on people and get to the bottom of the truth.
And that's
Um,
another thing too, is like how you just said that is a lot of this mainstream media tries to, I feel like they try to brainwash people and try to treat people like sheep. So
I
like
mean,
finding out for yourself and researching stuff for yourself is like the best way to really figure out like who what policies you like, who do you want to vote for and stuff like that. I just
right.
I find it very hard because of her and Waltz. It just logic and common sense is not them because to me they're stupidity. They represent stupidity. But and I'm not saying Trump's the end all be all whatever.
Mm,
But I think where we're at right now, like we was talking about when you go back, depending what was going on in the world at that time and everything. Right
mm,
now to where we're at, I think he's the better candidate to try to help get things back on track or try to fix things, in
mm.
my opinion. I like JD Vance a lot. I just watched him on Rogan too. He did a little over 3 hours. I liked him and made me like him even more. So,
Yeah, politicians have said a lot of nice things, but yeah,
mhm.
before voting begins,
Actions.
I'll have to definitely
Gotta
go back
see.
and see how their past actions were,
Yeah, gotta
and
see.
are they really standing behind their words?
That's the biggest thing is after Tuesday we'll find out if things are gonna get better or get worse.
Right.
But hopefully there's no fraud. That's one thing everyone's kind of worrying about too. But if whatever the outcome is, I just hope the country gets better and everyone's lives gets better. That's all you can hope for.
Um,
But again, we'll see what happens Tuesday. See where we're going. So if somebody wanted to find you online, uh, maybe listen to some of your music stuff like that, where would they go?
yeah, you can go to youtube.com/ at DJ SMYLES, DJ Smiles.
And if they want to reach out to you, do you have any kind of social media that you're
Uh,
on
I
or
do.
no?
You can also find me on Instagram under DJ Smiles for music. It's more than just being a beat maker or trying to hopefully make beats for rappers or get signed to a label. There's a lot more out there. Definitely research into it. Try to meet people, shake hands, so to say. Research your tools. There's so much knowledge. And if anybody has any questions, they could feel free to reach out as well. And I would be happy to chit chat with people.
Yep. All right. Well, we're gonna end it there. It's been we went past a lot longer than I thought we were going to, but we covered a lot, so it's a good, you know, that's good. All right. Well, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you all for you actually listen to everything. Greatly appreciate it. And Mr. Smiles, thank you again for doing this.
Thank you
And
for having me.
hopefully we can do it again. Talk about some other stuff. And I hope all of you have a blessed day. And we'll see you later. Peace.
Oh,